Good morning. I am back here with Scott Anderson, and Scott Anderson is a journalist and an author and reporter. He has many hats, and he's here to talk to us about his new book and just generally what he's been exposed to and in the world of crime and law enforcement and this exciting new book that you have. Is that?
Yeah, so I've been a newspaper crime reporter for 9 years now. The first 5 were here in Amador, covering crimes in Amador and Calaveras County, and I work currently in South Placer County. And so back in 2010, I won a National Journalism Fellowship to do a major national project on the link between methamphetamine addiction and crimes against innocent people and communities. And so I worked on that for 18 months. That was published as the book Shadow People in 2012. And the reason we're here this morning talking about this book is, interestingly enough, at the exact same time Shadow People was published, the whole criminal justice paradigm in California changed with the passage of AB 109 and more popularly known now as realignment by a lot of people. So it's interesting that readers in different parts of the nation were reading Shadow People and getting a pretty relevant view of what was going on in their justice system, but the California readers, where the book sold the best, they were reading about a justice system that wasn't even functioning the same way, even though the book came out right at that exact moment, you know. So I wanted to do another national project that looked at the kinds of things that happen in communities when prison overcrowding gets so out of control that it begins to have a very strong relationship to the new crime on the streets. So that's what the Cutting Floor piece is about. And
you're going to have is it a book signing or an event, I believe at Clark's Corner?
Yeah, I'm going to do a public talk this Sunday at Clark's Corner at 6 p.m. and so I'll do a talk for the public about how creating Shadow People led to this book, and then I'm going to do a Q&A and answer, you know, everybody's questions, because it's a very multi-layered problem, and so the questions could be very sort of complex and nuanced, but I will stay as long as I need to, and I'm not going to duck any questions. So.
Yeah, that's great, because you've had a well-rounded. You know, you've gone to so many different counties and so many different places. You've been to other states, and you've really done a lot of work and research on this. So you do know exactly what's going on out there. So you work side by side with a lot of different departments, and
yeah. Well, for Shadow People, it was 18 months, and I did over 1,000 hours of, I guess, what we'd call embedded work with law enforcement agencies in 5 counties. And then for this new project, I did another 250 hours with law enforcement. But I also spent a lot of time with mostly guys that were coming in and out of prison just to understand their life. Yeah, to understand the prison culture better and to understand how the prison culture affects their mentality, especially when they come out and they're rearrested so quickly.
Right.
And surprisingly, a number of them were pretty open about the life they were living, both inside the pen and outside.
It's a vicious circle. They go in, they come out. A lot of them don't rehabilitate, is that what you're saying? And a lot of them end up going back.
Right, and then only as the field research on this book was ending did Proposition 47 pass, but that certainly makes the picture even cloudier in terms of how law enforcement is able to deal with the drug world and the crimes that are coming out of the drug world against other people. Property crimes, burglaries, robberies, child abuse, domestic violence.
And how drugs, and you were talking about methamphetamine, is like the root of the problem, where they get addicted to this and then it goes on to other crimes.
Right. Well, I remember when I started Shadow People, for example, Amador County had a stat from its own probation department that 50% of all felony offenders were admitted meth users. And what's interesting about that number, so that's 50% of all felony offenders for all crimes in the county. And what's interesting about that number is everyone who's not in it. You know, people that were arrested for misdemeanors rather than felonies, people who were on parole rather than probation, people who just didn't admit in the survey, and then everybody who hasn't been caught. So what the real number was for Amador, I don't know. But if you talk to prosecutors and defense attorneys and law enforcement in Calaveras, they think that number would be even higher if they ran the same probe.
Well, very interesting information, Scott. And if people want to come out and talk to you, that is on this Sunday, April 12th.
April 12th.
What time?
6 p.m. Yeah.
At Clark's Corner. Very interesting information, and it's pretty naive to think there's not a lot of crime here, even in our community, but there is. And thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Very interesting.